I want you to stop for just a second and picture your most favorite memory. Maybe it's walking down the aisle on your wedding day, or eating your grandma's cooking, or looking into the eyes of your newborn for the very first time. Maybe your favorite memory fills you with a feeling so warm and so bright it can wash away any doubt, fear, or negativity just by thinking of it. Now imagine if suddenly that memory disappeared and completely vanished from your mind, and along with it the faces and names of your friends and family. What if you suddenly forgot how to read, cook, or use your cell phone? What if you couldn't even recognize your own children? What if every day you woke up confused about where you were, what you were doing, or who you were? Imagine feeling scared, paranoid, and alone, without anyone to guide you. That's the dark, frightening reality of the severe memory loss that millions of people face every day when living with Alzheimer's, a soul-stealing disease that robs you of all the best parts of life, the memories you've made with the ones you love. Within just 8 years of the diagnosis, Alzheimer's can take your life. From the moment of your first episode, the clock starts ticking, and what you thought was nothing but a little brain fog turns into something deadly. It's a hopeless, helpless disease that makes you a burden to everyone around you. And in America, Alzheimer's isn't just affecting seniors in their 70s and 80s. It's hitting people in their 60s, 50s, and even as young as 47 years old. And what is Big Pharma or Big Government doing about this problem? Not a damn thing. They tell us that the FDA is promising a huge breakthrough for AD. And yet, the death toll of Alzheimer's victims continuously rises, now up to 55%. Doctors don't want to admit it, but they are no closer to figuring out the root cause of this disease. They want to call it a lifestyle illness and put the blame on you. They tell you it's the food you eat, your lack of exercise, and your daily choices that lead to AD. They talk to you like you chose to be sick, like you really wanted to spend your life in agony. They say there's no cure, while they pump you full of prescriptions that cost you thousands of dollars. Meanwhile, they're cashing in on bribes from the Big Pharma and Big Government to keep you sick forever. The sad truth is, Americans have had no one standing up for them in the fight against memory loss. But today, that's all about to change. Hi, I'm Jack Prescott, and I'm here to tell you that there is another way to beat severe memory loss. I know firsthand how hard it is to fight Alzheimer's. My wife was diagnosed 2 years ago, and if it wasn't for the miracle I'll be sharing with you inside of this letter, I would have lost her, my best friend, to this terrible disease. Instead, in a strange turn of events, I found myself on a wild race against time, traveling nearly 9,000 miles away from home, deep into the unexplored jungles of India, on an unbelievable quest to discover the most effective method on the planet to support memory and brain health, and beating my wife's Alzheimer's once and for all. It's a story that I've told thousands of times, and each time I tell it, I can hardly believe just how awesome God is, how He tested my strength and faith and pushed me beyond my limits so I could save my wife, and eventually help thousands of people nationwide. If you or your loved ones have Alzheimer's, dementia, or are starting to show early signs like brain fog, forgetfulness, and low energy, then stay with me throughout this short presentation. I'm going to show you an easy and natural way to fight severe memory loss and win back your happiness and independence using nothing but a simple herbal method that can 100% naturally and easily support your memory and brain health, helping your mind stay sharp and active for many years to come. This simple method requires no prescriptions, no lifestyle changes, no mind-numbing memory exercises, and you won't even have to give up your favorite foods. It's 100% natural, has zero side effects, costs pennies on the dollar, and with it, you can take charge of your memory right in the comfort of your own home. This is something that, in every sense of the phrase, is a true gift from God. If you're skeptical and you think you've heard this tune before, that's okay. Inside this presentation, I'll put all those doubts to rest with a towering stack of evidence, proving not only that this method is more powerful than anything Big Pharma prescribes, but that it's also the safest thing you can do for your health. Plus, I'll also share my first-hand experience of witnessing Alzheimer's at its worst, how the disease caused my wife to nearly burn our house down, and even more shockingly, how it caused her to go missing in a third-world country, which was the most terrifying thing I've ever lived through. But when you hear how this wildly inexpensive and easy-to-find plant helped reverse all that Alzheimer's madness for my wife and give us back our lives, you'll be absolutely stunned at how easy it is for you to fight declining brain health. and you'll be anxious to start helping your memory now, before it's too late. This is, without a doubt, the most advanced natural memory loss tool in the world. You don't have to just take my word for it. This amazing method has already helped 17,330 people fight everything from Alzheimer's to brain fog and win back their lives and their loved ones. Folks like Jerry M. from Toledo, Kansas. He says, "You need to try this. I don't believe in giving false hope to people with dementia because I know just how serious this disease is. I've been suffering for a year now, and since I began this new method, I've seen nothing but great results. I can actually remember things again. I wish I'd been doing this method all my life. I'm convinced it's the only thing that can stop Alzheimer's." And Abigail Daniels from St. Paul, Minnesota, she says, "You see all these walks for AIDS awareness and MS, but no one cares about us with Alzheimer's. It's like once you get it, you've signed your death warrant. You'll be dead in a few years. Why bother finding a cure?" That's why I was so happy when I found Jack and his life-saving method. I've never had more hope for beating this disease. Everything inside the presentation helped me feel like I could truly change my fate. Thanks to his method, I don't have to spend the rest of my life losing myself. And Dale Marigold from Flagstaff, Arizona, he writes, "My biggest fear was forgetting my kids. I'm the father of 7 beautiful children and 12 grandchildren, and when I got Alzheimer's, I was so scared that I wouldn't even recognize them anymore. I was thinking of moving myself into an assisted living facility because I didn't want my kids to have to watch me disappear little by little every day. No father wants to put their child through that, but that's when I got lucky. My daughter helped me find Jack's miracle solution, and I must say, I don't live with the fear anymore. Each day I look forward to recalling old memories and making new ones. This method has given me back my independence, and I'm no longer considering moving away from my kids. I'm so thankful to God that someone finally stood up and made a difference for people with dementia, because I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for this." This is just a handful of stories from the people who have rewritten their fate with this anti-memory loss discovery. And in just a moment, I'll show you how you can join Abigail, Jerry, and Dale, and thousands of others who are beating their chronic severe memory loss. But first, I must warn you, big government and big pharma absolutely hates that this program exists. In fact, they stand to lose millions of dollars once people find out how the health industry has been lying to them. And once they begin using this 100% natural alternative that comes with no side effects. In my opinion, it's the safest way to fight Alzheimer's and support your health for many years to come. So I wouldn't be surprised if big pharma and big government are working on a sleazy scheme to shut down my site for good, robbing you of information that could be your ticket to a strong memory for the rest of your life. So if your health matters to you, then pay attention to everything I have to share with you inside this letter, because I'm about to show you just what this memory method is, and tell you the exciting, wild story of how I discovered it. But first, let me tell you more about who I am, and how I made it my mission to end Alzheimer's and memory loss once and for all. Like I mentioned before, my name is Jack Prescott. I'm 67-year-old retired contractor from the great state of Mississippi. I love the Lord, my guns, and my country, and above all, I love my wife, Jill. Jill and I have been married since we graduated high school some 50 years ago, and our 9 children and 22 grandkids have given us a joyous, love-filled life that anyone would wish for. I couldn't imagine walking a day in this world without my dear Jill at my side, which is why I was so devastated when we learned she had Alzheimer's. It all started around Thanksgiving 2 years ago. Jill was known throughout our neighborhood for her amazing cooking. She could out-fry, out-bake, and out-serve any chef this side of the Mississippi, and the church always loved her Sunday picnic services. Folks would line up around the block just to get a taste of her food. She knew tons of recipes, but she would only share them with her closest friends. She was so secretive about her winning recipes, she'd never write them on paper. She made her friends memorize them, the same way her mother and grandmother taught her. Well, that year, we had planned a big Thanksgiving dinner as always, but this year things were much more hectic, because Jill seemed to be forgetting many of her famous recipes. I remember watching her tear apart the kitchen, and when I asked what she was looking for, she responded, "I don't know," with a strange smirk on her face. Now, I didn't think much of it at the time. I thought she was just having a senior moment, as we laughingly called it. But as Thanksgiving got closer and closer, I noticed Jill was getting more stressed, and she was forgetting more and more things. I tried to help her, but she'd shoo me away, telling me she didn't need me getting in the way. Like many Southern gals, Jill was always so stubborn, so I just let her do her own thing, never believing anything bad would come of it. Well, Thanksgiving Day arrived, but Jill was so behind she has to stay at home prepping the house. Meanwhile, I left the house around 8 a.m. to hand out turkeys at the church, but just a few hours into the charity, I get a harrowing phone call from my next-door neighbor, screaming that my house was on fire and they couldn't find Jill anywhere. Immediately, I raced home, and the fire was so bad, y'all, I could see the flames from the freeway. I was completely breathless and terrified when I showed up and saw all the firemen running back and forth, but I couldn't see my Jill anywhere. I started screaming out her name in terror, "Jill, Jill, where are you?" But nothing. I couldn't tell if her car was in the garage, and there was no way to get into the house. Everything was engulfed in flames. I was going out of my mind with panic and fear. This whole time I was praying to God that Jill was safe and that nothing happened to her. Then, out of nowhere, I heard one of my neighbors yell, "There she is!" I turned and saw my wife stumbling through the crowds of people trying to reach me. I grabbed her and held her close, and thanked the man up above for saving my sweetheart. In my arms, I could feel that Jill was covered in sweat. "Where have you been?" I shouted, and then she just stared blankly at me. She stammered, her eyes turning left and right, trying to recall the next words, and then a horrified look came over her face. "I don't know," she whispered, with tears in her eyes. "You don't know? What do you mean?" I said. "I can't remember, Jack. I can't remember anything," she cried in my arms. That was the beginning of our Alzheimer's nightmare, and it only got worse from there. Firemen concluded the fire started in the kitchen and that the stove had been left on for hours unattended. The fire destroyed 40% of our house, totaling over $67,000 in damages. The worst part was what happened to my wife. She was not herself. Not only did she feel guilty, ashamed, and embarrassed by the whole situation, she couldn't even remember why she left the house in the first place, or where she went, which really made me worry. Of course, we went to see a specialist about this, but it didn't take the doctor long to diagnose Jill with Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's and dementia are lifestyle diseases. That means that when it comes to your brain, you've got to use it or lose it. Your wife is well into her golden years, so it's pretty obvious to me she's got the old Ronald Reagan for sure. "Excuse me? The old Ronald what?" I exclaimed. The doctor lowered his head sadly. "Your wife is demonstrating extreme behaviors of early-onset Alzheimer's. If she continues at this rate in the next 3 or 4 years, well, let's just say we'd be lucky if the house is the only thing she burns down." I've seen it all when it comes to dementia, and I recommend sedation and relaxation. If you keep her heavily medicated, then she can ride this out with the least amount of pain or stress. That'll be the best for both of you. I also recommend you get started on 3 prescriptions now. Razidine to slow the Alzheimer's, Depakote for seizures. Razidone can cause those. And the last is Prozac for the depression. Prozac will keep her from feeling blue or getting too aggressive, which, as you've heard, is how some older folks get with Alzheimer's. He handed me a script that looked a mile long and disappeared out of the office before my wife could even ask him a question. I couldn't believe how frank the doctor was. He might as well have told us to start saying our final goodbyes. He acted like my wife wasn't even a person anymore, and as if there was no reason to hope. This is when I realized our health care is really jacked up in this country. God-fearing, red-blooded Americans like us shouldn't be treated this way, not now and not ever. And I was furious that this quack had the nerve to treat my wife like a statistic, as if Alzheimer's was a death sentence. Now, I'm no doctor, but in that moment, I was starting to think there wasn't nothing different between me and that doc besides his fancy lab coat. Were these the kinds of heroes coming out of med school these days? Because when I looked at him, I didn't see a brave, helpful doctor in a lab coat. I just saw a suit with nothing in it. A man with no compassion, no heart, no soul. And this was the guy who was supposed to save my wife's life? I could probably heal my wife better than he could, I thought to myself angrily. Yet, who was I fooling? We had to at least do what the doctor said, right? He may have been crass, but we had to face the music about what was happening to Jill. She had Alzheimer's, and it wasn't just going to go away. Still, I told Jill not to worry, that we would get through this together, one day at a time, and find her something that could help. In the beginning, she seemed a little hopeful, but as months went on and her memory got worse and worse, I watched the hope drain straight out of my poor Jillybean's eyes. It wasn't just that she was forgetting or misplacing things now. She was starting to forget how to do stuff, like use the remote control or play her crossword puzzles. One day I saw her trying to use a fork to get toast out of the oven, like she had forgotten the inherent danger of electricity. That made me really nervous. What else was Jill going to forget? Would Jill hurt herself? With her rapid mental decline, she was quickly becoming more of a danger to herself and to everyone around her, and Jill knew it too. She became withdrawn and stopped visiting her friends and going out. She even stopped going to church, saying she didn't want anyone to pray for her anymore. All she would do was write in her journal, trying to remember and recall all her favorite memories in life and all the moments that made her feel good and that gave her happiness. She went mad with our photo albums and began pasting pictures of our kids all over the walls. She was so deathly afraid of the idea of forgetting our kids' faces, their names, or our grandbabies, that it was like watching a person go insane, and I felt so helpless. Every time I'd try to help her with her meds or with her list or her appointments, she'd go into a fit of rage, screaming at me that she didn't need my help and to stop treating her like a child. And I knew she was only speaking from a broken heart, but I'd be lying if I said that her words didn't cut me to the core. I know it sounds crazy, but I couldn't help but feel like this was all my fault. Maybe if I had paid closer attention to Jill and didn't just joke about her senior moments, I could have already been helping her get better and could have avoided this terrible fate. But now I didn't know what to do. The pills she was on weren't helping her. They just made her act like a drugged-out zombie. If she wasn't journaling and scrapbooking her past, she was stuck in a trance-like daze, and then sometimes the pills made her have unhappy thoughts, scary thoughts, she told me. She started saying things like, "I don't know how much longer I'll be around," and "I won't let myself become a burden to you." Things that made me afraid that Jill was thinking of doing something terrible to herself. My fears came to a head one frightening evening while Jill was sleeping, and I looked through her journal, finding what looked to be the beginning of a suicide note. When I read the sentence, "I'd rather be dead than to let my husband and children see me this way," my heart tensed up and I began to cry. This was the final straw, and I knew I had to do something to help my wife before it was too late. With all the drama of the house, the doctors, and Jill's worsening Alzheimer's, I thought the best thing we could do was get away for a while and take a vacation. Jill loved to travel, and maybe a trip out of the country would do her soul some good, and hopefully it could help her stop feeling so depressed. I was hopeful, too, that the trip would give me the encouragement I needed to keep supporting Jill as she suffered through this terrible disease. Because, Lord knows, I felt like a candle burning at both ends. Throughout our marriage, my wife and I had been to a lot of places, but Jill had always wanted to see the Taj Mahal. It was India's most beautiful and most famous tourist destination, and I felt it would be the perfect place to escape to for a few weeks. But given Jill's recent episodes, I was really worried that taking her on a trip would be dangerous, and I wouldn't be able to forgive myself if something bad happened to her while we were gone. So I prayed on it and ended up going to my pastor at the church for more guidance. Speaking to my pastor really boosted my hope and confidence. He reassured me that this trip was the blessing from God we were searching for, telling me that the experiences would open up the door to 1,000 miracles, and that by going on this journey, I would be showing a great deal of faith in our Lord. Plus, with the way things were going, who knew if Jill would be around much longer? This trip could inspire new life into her before she passed. So I owed it to Jill to make her last days her best days, he said. Well, even though it was sad to think about my dear Jillybean's days coming to an end, that talk with my pastor was all the divine direction I needed. I was going to take Jill to the Taj Mahal. When I told her where we were going, she immediately lit up, which made me feel great. And before I knew it, we were flying 9,000 miles to Agra, India. For the first 3 days of the trip, everything went perfectly fine. Jill and I visited the Taj Mahal and did a lot of sightseeing. She was really energized by the environment. All the new people and places really excited her and gave her fresh curiosity about life. She was smiling and laughing again, something I hadn't seen her do in months, and for a while it felt like things were back to normal. Like the Thanksgiving fire and Alzheimer's had never happened, like it was all a bad dream or something, and Jill was perfectly fine and healthy again. But on the fourth day, all those good feelings vanished, as things went really bad, really fast. I woke up in our hotel room and turned over and didn't see Jill. I got up and looked in the bathroom and out on the balcony, but she was nowhere in sight. Oh, my great God, where did she go? My heart was pounding through my chest. I went downstairs to the front desk and asked them if they had seen my wife, but they barely spoke English and had no way of helping me. I ran out onto the street looking madly in every direction, but there was no sight of Jill. I was trying not to panic, but what else could I do? We were 9,000 miles away from home, and my wife, who had Alzheimer's, had disappeared without a trace from our hotel, and could be wandering around anywhere in this foreign town. What if she had ended up in a bad neighborhood with bad people? All I could think was that someone kidnapped her and was doing awful things to her. I was petrified. I asked the receptionist to call the police and to bring an English translator. Within 30 minutes, I had a full-fledged manhunt for my wife. The police captain was an Indian man who spoke perfect English, which really surprised me. He was tall, dark, and weathered, like he'd been in the force for a long time. Okay, Mr. Prescott, start from the top. What happened to your wife, and when did she go missing? I explained to him that my wife had Alzheimer's, but that she had been doing just fine, at least until that morning when she disappeared, and that I hadn't seen her since. She didn't have her cell phone on her, her purse, or anything. The only thing I didn't find in the hotel room besides Jill was her journal. I couldn't even tell him what she was wearing. The captain took his notes, shouted an order to his sergeant in Hindi. Then a group of officers left the building, leaving me alone with the captain. "How long has your wife had Alzheimer's?" he asked me. "It's been about 7 months now," I told him. "Ah, then it must be a really aggressive form. Alzheimer's isn't something you get a lot of here in India." "Why's that?" I asked, a little angry. I was hoping this captain wasn't going to brag to me about his country's perfect health. I had heard that Eastern medicine had a lot to offer, but I didn't want to be made fun of while I was so desperately trying to find my wife. "We let nature protect us from disease," the captain said. "Alzheimer's is everywhere where medicine doesn't come from the earth. Doctors in Western medicine don't know how to heal people. With all their fancy technology and money, they still haven't figured out how to let Mother Nature heal them. You pay them all your money, and what do for you? Kill you faster. These doctors sell you a diagnosis and trick you into buying all their expensive medications and treatments. All for what? Just to die suffering. Diseases like Alzheimer's is a joke in my country." "Well, where I come from, Alzheimer's is serious," I yelled. "You can't just eat a plant and make it go away like that," I snapped. "And I'd appreciate it if you didn't just throw my problems in my face. How is this going to help my wife?" "Mr. Prescott, my team is very good. Your wife couldn't have gone far, and she hasn't been gone that long. She sticks out like a sore thumb in these parts, so I'm sure we'll find her soon. But finding her won't heal her of her sickness. Yet I know of something that could." My ears really perked up at the sound of that. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Tell you what, when my men bring back your wife, I will take you to my friend Pelahat. She's a healer, the best healer, and she can heal your wife." "Listen, bucko, I don't need anyone giving me false hope. My wife," I started, but the captain cut me off. "I tell no lies, honest," he said. "If you want to heal your wife, I know Pelahat can help her, but you will have to trust me." That sounded like an impossible task, but I had already trusted the captain to find my wife. Maybe as crazy as it sounded, I should trust him to help us find a cure for her Alzheimer's too, although I was scared, skeptical, and a little out of my mind. I shook hands with the captain and said if he brought my wife back safely to me, I'd follow him wherever he wanted to go, that we could meet this Pelahat person, and I'd let her try her magic potion on my wife. Well, 5 hours passed, and as I anxiously held my breath, waiting for any sign of my wife, the captain received a call on his radio. The men spoke in Hindi, and I couldn't understand what the captain was saying. But when he finished, I could tell it was good news. "They found your wife," the captain said. "Let's go meet them at the station." Relieved, I hopped into Captain's tiny jeep, and we raced through the crowded Agra streets to the police station. When we walked in and I saw my wife sitting in the lobby, I nearly burst into tears. She began crying too, as she had been so scared and lost and confused. That's when the captain told me that we had to hurry because there wasn't much time to get to Pelahat if we wanted to save my wife. Jill didn't understand, and I told her I would explain everything on the road. The captain rushed us into the jeep and took off down a winding path that led into the jungle. For 6 hours we zoomed through the dark green jungles of the outskirts of Agra, zipping down the bumpy terrain like an ambulance. I could tell my wife was frightened, and I was too. I couldn't help thinking we were going to get killed, or robbed, or have our organs harvested. And the whole time I couldn't believe I had actually agreed to doing this. But something in my gut told me to keep the faith, and that everything would be all right if I just saw this through. Finally, after hours of driving, we stopped at a wooden bridge leading us over a river. From here we go on foot, the captain said as he helped us out of the jeep. My wife clung to me as we crossed a swaying bridge that was held together by nothing but old rope and wooden slacks. It felt like a scene out of Indiana Jones. The captain walked along like he'd been on this trail 1,000,000 times, and he safely led us to the other side where we came upon a small village. All you could see were tiny clay huts with the shadows of people moving about in them. I expected everyone to stare at us strangely and treat us with hostility, but as we passed, it seemed like no one was bothered at all. In fact, people waved and smiled. They were friendly even. The children ran up to the captain, surrounding him like he was a celebrity or something. They came up to us too, handing us flowers and wanting to hold our hands. My wife and I were completely shocked by the warm reception we were receiving from these unfamiliar village people. And as weird as it was, I suddenly felt this strange, strong sense of home, kind of like we were back at church in Mississippi. Before I knew it, the captain had led us to a hut that was filled with glowing gold light. At the word of the captain, the children all ran back to their families, and the captain turned to us before entering the hut and said, "This is Pelahat's home. You enter a sick woman, you leave a healed child of earth. Come, we have much to do." My wife and I looked at each other one final time. We had come this far and had seen so much, there was no turning back now. We entered the hut, and there sat a woman wearing a colorful, draped gown, deeply focused on mixing something in a bowl. I snapped a photo of Pelahat when we walked in. The captain walked over to her and bowed closer to her ear. Then they began speaking in Hindi together. After they finished their conversation, Pelahat rose to her feet and walked past us out of the hut. We followed her. The captain said we needed supplies, so we headed down to the mouth of the river. Pelahat moved quickly for a woman her age, and Jill and I had a hard time keeping up with her pace. When we finally got to the river, my wife and I were startled when Pelahat dove right into the water. When she came back up to the surface, she had a knife between her teeth, and she swam towards the other side. The current was fast, and yet she swam calmly like she was at the YMCA. I was worried the old lady was going to drown. But then she reached the other side where she clung to these green plants sticking out from the river with white flowers all over them. "What are those?" I asked the captain. "We call it Brahmi. It's a healing plant. There are Western studies on it too," he said. Brahmi. I had never heard of anything like that before. With the blade, she began cutting huge bunches of the plant, speedily wrapping them around her arm like a rope as she gathered them. It was literally the most impressive thing I've ever seen done by anyone. Finally, when she was done, she swam back to us and let the captain help her out of the water. Then we returned to the hut where she threw the Brahmi into a large cauldron and began mashing them with a staff. While she prepared her mixture, she chanted strange Hindi words and began adding in all kinds of powders, ingredients that I couldn't recognize, but to be honest, I was afraid to ask about. This went on for the next 30 minutes or so, and then finally her potion was complete. She scooped it into a small clay pot and then covered it with some sort of animal skin. Then she handed it to Jill. Jill, unsure of what to do, brought the pot to her lips, but Pelahat let out a shrill "Ack!" which stopped her in her tracks. "7 days," she whispered, which startled the both of us as we had no clue that she could speak English. 7 days, then drink," she repeated. Then she shooed us out of the hut with the elixir in hand, and we never saw her again. The captain led us out of the small village, across the bridge, and back to the jeep. And 6 hours later we were back at our hotel, still amazed that all of this had happened. Remember, wait 7 days to drink the potion. Then take 1 teaspoon every day, and she will be healed, the captain said as he dropped us off. I thanked the captain for his help and told him we'd keep in touch. And as he drove away, the nervousness began to set in. Then for the next 7 days, all we could do was wait. So this weird jungle potion could settle, or whatever it was that needed to happen, before Jill could try it herself, and see if it could miraculously heal her of her Alzheimer's, like the captain and Pillahat said it could. We had lots of time on our hands, so in the meantime I thought, why not do some research on this plant, Brahmi, to see if there were any clinical studies proving that it could be beneficial for dementia and Alzheimer's. Well, I discovered that this little plant had a lot to offer. In my research, I found out something really interesting. Brahmi is actually known as Bacopa monieri to the Western world. Bacopa monieri is an aquatic plant native to the wetlands in India, and it's one of the most diverse plant species known to man, as you can find variations of it growing on continents around the world. Bacopa monieri has been popular in Eastern medicine for centuries, but only recently has the West begun to catch on to Bacopa's incredible potential. For example, in a recent study published in the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Research that was randomized, double-blind, and placebo-controlled, when 98 participants over the age of 55 years old started taking Bacopa monieri regularly, the researchers found Bacopa significantly improved verbal learning, memory acquisition, and delayed recall. Meanwhile, in another recent study, this one published in the Journal of Psychiatry, that was also double-blind, randomized, and placebo-controlled, it was found that taking Bacopa monieri produced significant improvements on mental control, logical memory, and paired-associated learning, leading the authors to conclude that this plant is efficacious in subjects with age-associated memory impairment. And those 2 studies were really just the beginning. In 4 additional double-blind, randomized, and placebo-controlled studies with human test subjects, all of them recently and published in Tier 1 peer-reviewed scientific journals, Bacopa monieri was found to significantly improve performance on working memory and spatial working memory accuracy, significantly improve speed of visual information processing, learning rate, and memory consolidation, show a significant effect on the retention of new information while decreasing the rate of forgetting new information, and lead to significant improvement in ability to focus, memory recall, and mental performance, while leading to a decrease in depression. As I kept researching, I could hardly believe what I was reading. It sounded nearly too good to be true. And while there was no denying that Bacopa monieri was a well-studied plant that showed a lot of promise, I still felt like it was still a long shot that some random Indian waterflower would work for someone like my wife, someone whose Alzheimer's had been progressing rapidly, and who was getting worse and worse with every passing day. So, as the 7th day passed and I prepared to give Jill her first teaspoon of this strange concoction, I was very careful to hold my emotions in check. We decided that in order to test the effectiveness of the mixture, we would do a memory test every morning. 1. What day is it? 2. What town are we in? 3. What is the name of our firstborn? 4. When's Christmas Day? If Jill could answer any of these questions correctly, then I would know that her memory was improving and the Bacopa monieri mixture was working. Well, for the first 3 days, we didn't see any real improvement. Jill was still struggling to remember what day it was, or even the fact that we were in India, which was discouraging to say the least. I started thinking maybe I'd been a fool to trust the captain or Pillahat, and I even thought about just stopping Jill's herbal treatment right then and there, rather than continuing to put us through this emotional roller coaster any longer. But when I looked into Jill's eyes, I saw the woman I loved more than anything else in this world, a woman who needed my help. And so I pushed forward and kept giving Jill her herbal treatment. And thank God for that, because on the 5th day of taking her Indian jungle potion, Jill surprised me. She was able to quickly and easily tell me what day of the week it was. I know that might sound like a little thing, but it was definitely an improvement from where her memory had been. And I was even more shocked when 3 days after that, Jill was able to answer all 4 questions I asked her without any struggle at all. In the days that followed, Jill continued to be able to answer all 4 questions in our little test with no problems whatsoever. And so I started adding new questions each day, like if she remembered meeting the captain in Pelahat, what the date of our anniversary was, and where we celebrated Christmas Eve in 1996. Astoundingly, Jill was able to recall all of these events in perfect clarity. Not only did she remember recent things like crossing the Indiana Jones Bridge with the captain, but older events too, like the fact that we spent Christmas of 1996 at her sister's ranch in Oklahoma. It was truly remarkable. It really seemed like not only was Jill's memory coming back, but it was actually becoming stronger than ever. And it wasn't just her memory either. It was like her entire personality had been restored. Instead of walking around depressed and sedated, she was vibrant, cheerful, and excited for life. And by the time we took our flight home, Jill was acting and feeling like her old self again. So much so that I nearly forgot she'd been diagnosed with Alzheimer's in the first place. While I was so happy for Jill, I couldn't help but worry, because I knew our Bacopa potion was running out, and I didn't know what we could do when we no longer had this strange jungle concoction, or how we'd be able to keep Jill's Alzheimer's under control. My first hope was that I could just make it myself. But while I knew that one of the main ingredients was Bacopa monnieri, I also realized that there had to be a dozen or so more ingredients I didn't know about, which meant I had to get my hands on the rest of Pelahat's recipe as fast as possible. I called the police station looking for the captain, but I couldn't reach him, so I left my phone number, email, and home address with the station, and pleaded with them to have the captain call me as soon as he could. Weeks and weeks passed, and each day Jill's potion supply dwindled by the teaspoon. I grew more and more nervous, worried about what we were going to do. I didn't want Jill to go backwards in her recovery and start forgetting everything again. A relapse like that would crush her spirit, and mine. Finally, after a month of waiting, I received a letter in the mail all the way from Agra, India, and it was from the captain. Dear Mr. Prescott, I apologize for my delayed response. We've been dealing with the aftermath of a giant flood that has wiped out our city. Pelahat's village was one of the places hit hardest, and the river where we found the Brahmi is overrun with debris. Luckily, she and the villagers survived, but destruction to their home will take years to repair. We are worried about our Brahmi supply here now. You and your wife were very lucky to be here before this tragedy hit. I have for you the rest of Pelahat's recipe. I hope you continue to use this miracle for good. This could be a life changer for so many of your brothers and sisters at home. Wishing you and Jill all the best, Captain Michael. I was so grateful that the captain sent his letter, and when I looked over the ingredient list, I realized there were a total of 11 ingredients inside Pelahat's potion, including Bacopa monnieri. Of course, I was curious if the other ingredients were just as powerful as Bacopa monnieri at protecting your memory and brain health, so I did my research. And I was really shocked to see that every single one of these ingredients was supported by tons of clinical data on their ability to fight Alzheimer's, along with how they could naturally boost memory, brain function, and alertness. For example, one of the ingredients in Pelahat's recipe was club moss, which is filled with something called huperzine A. In a 2014 study published in the journal Evidence-Based Complementary Alternative Medicine, when several leading scientists looked at 10 different double-blind, randomized, and placebo-controlled studies on huperzine A, which included over 830 Alzheimer's patients and over 92 dementia patients, they were shocked to find that taking huperzine A routinely led to significant improvement of cognitive function in both Alzheimer's and dementia patients. In fact, in all 10 of these double-blind trials, the patients improved on every single measurement, including the ability to recall short and long-term facts, their quality of life, even the speed at which they learned and retained new information. And in another double-blind, placebo-controlled and randomized study I uncovered, 50 patients took huperzine A for 8 weeks, At the end of the 2 months, these researchers found that patients treated with huperzine A showed improvements in their memory, cognitive, and behavioral functions, leading the scientists to conclude that huperzine A is a promising drug for symptomatic treatment of Alzheimer's disease. Pretty remarkable, right? And that was just the start. Another ingredient in Pelahot's recipe was something called periwinkle plant. And through my research, I discovered that a compound from this plant called vinpocetine was giving people massive breakthroughs in their fight against memory loss. That's exactly what happened in a 2015 study that was randomized, double-blind, and placebo-controlled, and published in the Annals of Medical and Health Sciences Research. In this study, 56 cognitively impaired patients were given treatment with vinpocetine, and it was found that there were significant improvements in memory and concentration with vinpocetine therapy. And in that summary, vinpocetine was effective in improving memory and concentration of patients with epilepsy and dementia. Meanwhile, in a 2016 study published in Biological and Pharmaceutical Bulletin, it was discovered that taking vinpocetine for 28 days significantly improved memory dysfunction and improved emotional memory, leading the scientists to conducting the study to conclude that our results suggest that vinpocetine could improve cognitive function in memory-deficient subjects. Now, we don't have time to go into all the research for every single ingredient Pelahot used in her potion, but I will list them all out for you here. Her potion also included lentil extract and skullcap, which are full of healthy neurotransmitters like GABA and choline, alpha-GPC that support brain function. Plus, she added in betel nut extract and green tea extract, which are packed with healthy amino acids like L-theanine and L-tyrosine, amino acids that are crucial to your memory and brain health, along with black tea extract that contains healthy amounts of caffeine, which has been shown to increase sharpness and focus, and white bean extract that contains phosphoradelsarine, which is a natural compound that's been shown in hundreds of studies to help protect against Alzheimer's, dementia, and memory loss. And as I looked at all the incredible research behind each of these ingredients, all I could keep thinking is, why didn't our doctor tell us about any of these? The 3 prescriptions he gave Jill, Razidine, Depakote, and Prozac, had a whole host of terrible side effects, including cardiovascular issues that could lead to death. If doctors really cared about my wife's getting healthier, then why were they giving her a dangerous cocktail of pills? Why weren't they teaching us about these natural, healthy, and completely harmless plants? Some of them so easy to access that it's a shame we never knew about them. To me, all of this was even more evidence that doctors weren't healers, they were salesmen. They sell you a diagnosis and all the prescriptions that come with it, and force you to be a slave to Big Pharma until you die. That's what Big Medicine and Big Pharma steal from us. They steal the authority that we have over our own bodies. They make us feel like we can't do anything to help ourselves get better without them, which is nothing but a big fat lie. And I was angry that we had been duped by folks who are supposed to be helping us get better, which made me even more determined to help Jill with this formula. So now that I had all 11 ingredients plus the clinical evidence to back them up, I was ready to make the Alzheimer's fighting formula for Jill. So I quickly went online and shipped all the ingredients to us, which was a huge expense, because each ingredient came from a different part of the world. And I also had to make sure to get the purest and most bioavailable forms of each ingredient to ensure they would work on Jill. Once I got all the ingredients, I realized I was going to need some professional help in putting the concoction together. I wanted to put all 11 ingredients inside of one capsule. That way, Jill could easily take them without any hassle or fuss with measuring. So I reached out to a local laboratory for their help, which cost me a pretty penny too. But at this point, there wasn't anything that was going to stop me from making this pill and saving my wife's life. The process took months. We had several trials and errors getting the mixture just right, and fitting all that Alzheimer's fighting power into a small, easy-to-swallow capsule. But after nearly 6 months of working at it, we finally made something we were all proud of. In the time that we spent working on the new formula, my wife nearly ran out of Pelahot's potion, and right away I noticed that without her Indian memory powder, her memory was declining again. But once my wife began taking the new formula that me and the team at the lab had created, it was like she immediately sprang back to life, like a wilting plant that receives fresh water. Day by day, Jill regained her energy, vitality, and most importantly, her memory, and had more confidence to boot. Everyone noticed she was feeling better when she came back to church. The pastor hugged her and even shed a tear when he saw that Jill had been saved by God's miracle. Soon word got around town that Jill had a new lease on life thanks to our miracle memory formula, and everyone started asking where they too could get their hands on this brain-boosting recipe. That's when I remembered something important that the captain said in his letter. This recipe was life-changing, and it wasn't good enough if it just helped save my wife. People all over America deserved a chance to experience the benefits of this all-natural memory-helping formula, so they too could fight memory loss, beat Alzheimer's, and get back their lives and happiness once and for all. I decided to make this recipe available to the masses. I signed a contract with the local laboratory and began producing as many bottles of my breakthrough memory pill as I could afford. Today, this creation has helped nearly 18,000 people with memory loss and counting, and me and Jill decided to call our formula cogni360 because each capsule can help to revolutionize your cognition and mental performance. Every bottle of cogni360 contains highly optimized forms of the 11 ingredients inside of Pelahot's amazing memory loss formula, including Bacopa monieri, Brahmi, periwinkle seed extract, benpositine, Chinese club moss, huperzine A, white bean extract, phosphatidylserine, Assam tea extract, caffeine, skullcap, GABA, lentil extract, alpha-GPC, green tea extract, L-theanine, betelnut extract, L-tyrosine, vitamin B3, vitamin B6. Each ingredient on its own has been significantly proven to boost memory and improve brain performance. But when combined together, these 11 ingredients give you the ultimate toolbox to fight against brain-related decline, whether you just suffer from the occasional lapse in memory or you want to fight back against Alzheimer's and dementia, without the need of any pills or prescriptions from your doctor. You should know that cogni360 is manufactured right here in the U.S., in a facility that follows all GMP guidelines. And we also have each batch tested by an independent third-party laboratory to ensure that what's on the label is really inside each bottle, so that when you add the facts up, it should be pretty clear why we believe cogni360 is the most high-quality memory-boosting supplement available today. With our all-natural, bioavailable ingredients, cogni360 is unmatched in its ability to fight brain inflammation and oxidative stress, help rebuild and protect brain cells, help sharpen memory and focus, and so much more. And our highly advanced memory support formula is full of natural antioxidants, which can protect you from long-term health risks and dangerous free radicals too. In fact, within just a few short weeks of taking cogni360, you could feel like you've been given a new lease on life. Imagine if you could easily remember names, faces, places, and details. Imagine not having to depend on your spouse or children to help you get around, or finally feeling free from the trap of prescription pills. Imagine feeling healthier, more energized, and more alert than ever before. Now, stop imagining, because those are exactly the kind of things people who use cogni360 report. Just like Tony Mitchum in Chicago, Illinois. He says, "I'd seen memory supplements marketed online before, but I was skeptical. Most of the websites didn't seem legit, and I felt like I couldn't trust the companies. But after watching your presentation and seeing all of the science behind cogni360, I decided to give your product a try. Let me just tell you, it's been an exciting adventure. I feel sharper, more present, and more energized than I felt in years. Plus, the ingredients feel so clean and natural, I don't have any jitters or anxiety. I love taking it every day." And Layla Carmichael in Daytona Beach, Florida, she says, "I was so tired of the medication merry-go-round. My doctor put my mom on an antidepressant and anticonvulsant and a dementia pill just to keep her functioning from day to day. Mom wasn't even acting like herself, which was depressing to watch. Cogni360 has been such a tremendous blessing. The improvement Mom has made in just a few short months is fantastic. She even remembered my daughter, who she hadn't recognized in months. That's something I thought she'd never be able to do again. Thank you, cogni360, for giving me hope that I can have my mom back. So now let me share exactly how you can join Tony and Layla and the more than 17,000 people across the country who are using cogni360 every day and who report that they've never felt sharper, healthier, or more in control of their lives. The normal price of cogni360 is $149, and while I know that might sound pretty steep, you need to remember that there's really nothing else like cogni360 available on the market today. The vast majority of memory supplements you see for sale online and at health stores are questionable quality at best. Some of them are even manufactured in overseas factories where there's the danger of lead and other poisons creeping in. And as you have seen, many pharmaceuticals just make problems worse and put you on a medication merry-go-round for the rest of your life. Plus, given that the ingredients inside of cogni360 have been scientifically proven to fight inflammation, improve memory, reduce stress and anxiety, and even help with inflammatory pains, the chances are high that if you begin using cogni360 regularly, you'll end up cutting $300 a month or more from your healthcare cost. It's no secret, almost all of the health problems Americans face stem from inflammation, which means you'll need to reduce inflammation, which the ingredients inside of cogni360 have been shown to do. You're also helping with your immune health, your heart health, your joint health, and hundreds of other health concerns. This means a healthier you, and less money spent on prescriptions, doctor visits, and health insurance. So considering you'll probably save at least $4,360 in annual health care costs when you use cogni360 to boost memory and boost your brain health, I really do think that $149 is a fair price for cogni360. But while that may be the case, I also know that many folks are on a fixed income or a tight budget, and that $149 is a lot to ask. So after much back and forth, I've decided to give you a special deal right inside this presentation. A discount that will let you try out cogni360 for not $149 or even $97, but instead just $69. That's a savings of $80. But it's still just the start. You see, because so many of our customers end up ordering 6 bottles of cogni360 at a time so that they remain stocked up on this important memory support breakthrough, and so they can share it with their significant others, their family members, and their friends, we've created a special multi-bottle discount where you can get cogni360 for as low as $49 per bottle. To get started right now with your own supply of cogni360, simply click the button you see below this video right now and get started placing your order. I should also mention this 6-bottle package is by far our most popular option, because the more you take cogni360, the better it'll work for you, and the more benefits you'll experience each day. That's why so many of our customers decide to stock up on cogni360 when there are supplies available. That way they can feel confident in knowing that pain relief journey won't be interrupted 30 days from now if we run out of stock, which happens a lot because of cogni360's incredible popularity, and that they'll be able to continue to enjoy the benefits of being more alert, vibrant, and energized about life for months and months to come. So go ahead and order your 6-month supply of cogni360 right now, or whatever amount is right for you, by clicking the button below this video right now. Once you do that, you'll go to our secure and encrypted checkout page, where you'll enter your basic order details. In total, this process takes less than 2 minutes, and the moment you're done, cogni360 will be out the door and on its way to you. We'll also cover shipping and handling for you, which saves you another $12.99. But the free shipping is only available while there are supplies of cogni360 in stock. You should also know that your order of cogni360 is covered by our 6 months, 100% money-back guarantee. Here's how it works. Right now, you simply click the button below this video right now and secure your very own supply of cogni360. Your order will then arrive in the next 3 to 5 business days. And the moment you get it, I want you to rip open that packaging and start using cogni360. I'm incredibly confident that you'll notice a huge difference once you start taking this premium memory support formula, and that you'll feel like your mind is clearer, sharper, and working faster day by day. And if you change your mind about cogni360 for any reason in the next 6 months, just call or email our award-winning U.S.-based customer service team, and we will immediately refund your full investment with 0 questions asked. Plus, on top of that, you don't even need to return your order. Cogni360 will be yours to keep as our way of saying thanks. So in other words, there is absolutely 0 risk or reason for hesitation here today. You'll have a full 180 days to see if cogni360 is for you, and if you change your mind, you don't pay a dime. But if you're ready to take advantage of this life-changing offer, you do need to act fast. In addition to only having a limited discounted supply available, we're also under constant fire from Big Pharma and Big Government. Given that cogni360 helps people fight for their memory and against Alzheimer's without taking any pills, using addictive substances or prescriptions, proving that you don't necessarily need to pay for expensive doctor's visits or exams, it's easy to see why the $100 billion memory loss industry can't stand what we're doing, and why we're under constant harassment from their lawyers, and why I simply cannot guarantee how long this offer will remain online. So go ahead and order your very own supply of cogni360 right now by clicking the button below right away. You'll be saving up to $100 per bottle when you make that decision. Get shipping and handling for free, a $12.99 savings, and you'll be protected by that 180-day, 100% money-back guarantee. It's one heck of a deal, 100% risk-free. But this presentation is ending, so this is your last chance. You've seen the science behind cogni360 and its anti-inflammatory powers, and how using all natural ingredients can help your brain health upon the very first dose. You've seen how all 11 ingredients inside of cogni360 have been linked to improved memory, better focus, and anti-inflammatory benefits, and how the antioxidant power of cogni360 can change your life. So whether you've been searching for a way to fight the effects of Alzheimer's and dementia, or simply want a sharper, more focused memory day after day, cogni360 is the answer you've been looking for. Ultimately, the choice is yours. But I hope you'll make the smart decision by clicking the button below and try your own risk-free supply of cogni360 today. Sincerely, Jack Prescott, Cogni360. Hey, are you still here? No problem. I know that was a lot to take in, and maybe there's something on your mind still. So to help you out, let me go ahead and answer some of the most common questions folks ask me. That way you can make your investment in Cogni360 today with total confidence. 1. Who is Cogni360 for? Cogni360 is a highly optimized memory support formula that uses the power of Bacopa monnieri, along with 10 other natural ingredients, to fight brain inflammation, oxidative stress, and protein plaque buildup, which are some of the main culprits that can lead to Alzheimer's and dementia. But it's not just people who are suffering from a severe brain disease who can benefit from Cogni360. This breakthrough is for anyone suffering from any memory or cognitive issues, people who need more energy and better focus, or anyone who wants to live the most productive, happy life they possibly can. 2. What makes Cogni360 different from all those other memory supplements I see advertised? Cogni360 is made with 11 essential ingredients that infuse your brain with beneficial amino acids, antioxidants, and anti-inflammatories that defend and support your brain. These 11 ingredients are non-synthetic, which means they aren't made with fillers and harmful chemicals that are found in prescription drugs. Additionally, Cogni360 is manufactured in a GMP-certified facility that follows all FDA guidelines, and each batch is independently tested by a third-party laboratory, which ensures that what you see on the label is what you get inside each bottle. 3. How long will this offer be available for? That's a good question, but the answer is complicated. For one thing, because the cost to source our all-natural ingredients are quite high, we only have limited amounts of discounted supply in stock. Remember, normally, cogni360 is $149 a bottle. But through this webpage, you can get it for just $69 per bottle while supplies last, and just $49 when you stock up today. Besides supplies being limited, however, there's also the threat that Big Pharma's multi-million-dollar lawyers will shut us down. We'll certainly fight them for as long as we can, but given that cogni360 can help fight severe memory loss, not just mask the symptoms, both the brain supplement industry and Big Pharma are desperate to get this presentation removed from the internet fast. 4. What can you tell me about the guarantee again? As I mentioned, it's a full 6 months, 100% money-back guarantee. This means if you change your mind about your investment for any reason in the next 180 days, just call or email our award-winning U.S.-based customer service team, and we'll immediately refund your investment with 0 questions asked. In other words, there's no risk whatsoever. 5. Okay, I'm ready to order. What do I need to do? Simply click the button at the bottom of this presentation. You'll then go to our secure order page where you'll enter your shipping details. Then, in 3 to 5 business days, cogni360 will be at your front door. Shipping and handling are 100% free, which is a $12.99 savings. But remember, there are only limited supplies of cogni360 available at any given time, which means if you put this off, it could be months until you have another chance to experience cogni360 for yourself. So go ahead and order cogni360 now at this huge savings. And we look forward to hearing about your experience with this premium memory support supplement.